94.3 WYBC, the rhythm of the city and home of the Juan Castillo Morning Show. Good morning, New Haven. This is Moving Target. I am your host, Jay Kemp. And of course, with me is my comrade, Remedy Sharif. What's
Peace
good,
and
brother?
blessings, man. Peace and blessings. Super Saturday.
And we got the young king in the building. Spencer, what's good?
What's up? Good morning, people.
So first and foremost, I want to just say live in peace to our beloved brother, Nipsey Hussle. I say live because I believe many people out there, including myself, have been inspired by Nipsey for one reason or another, whether that's in his community work, his music, his wisdom, his hustle, and he lives on through so many people around the world, especially with his grassroots work, which is what we're all about. And it's still a sad time for hip hop. It's a sad time for the people, and I would argue to say that the transition of Nipsey has even been more difficult for me than Tupac, because Tupac inspired thought, which is what we needed at that time. But Nipsey inspired hustle, inspired action. You know, he was the one individual that I could go to my young people and say that who my young people looked up to and say, that's how you do it when you get there. That's how you take your platform, right? So it's been a tough time. So today we're going to take some time to observe the Nipsey Hussle blueprint and see how we are or how we need to begin applying the various ways he was serving the people. But I'm still pretty broken up about it. It's still a kind of a dark time. What about you, Rem?
It's really hard, man. It is. You know what I mean? A lot. It's really hard, man, because that brother work and that brother what he was doing is the energy of what a lot of us do and have done for years in our own city, and to see somebody doing it on that level,
Yeah.
it's hard, man. It's sad.
Yeah, yeah, it is, man. So before I introduce my guests, I think it's important to address something, all right? Especially after Nipsey's transition, the word that comes up often, is woke. And I just want to address the woke folk, all right? Because I believe woke is becoming a term that I believe limits our drive to actually do our part in the community. I'm woke, so I got my Ankh, I saw the Hidden Color series, I got my memes, I'm good. I'm a meme activist. So, and since Nipsey's passing, everybody's been a Dr. Sebi student. They watched a few YouTube videos. Now everybody know Dr. Sebi, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. But again, when it limits the work that you feel you need to put in, that to me is problematic. And you could be woke nowadays and still be in bed, right? So in the words of Nova Slime, we need to get activated and get past woke, and it's not about changing the world. It's not about having a whole bunch of, being a leader of millions. It's about doing your part for the community, how you can contribute to the efforts that everybody's doing on a grassroots level. And so for us to keep our beloved brother Nipsey Hussle spirit alive, we got to be activated. But I say all that because and this is connected to our guest, by the way. This is why I'm laying all this out to introduce him. But I say all that because I just want to enlighten you with what woke was when I grew up. When I grew up, if you were woke, you were a master teacher. Straight up. People who studied every day, all day, memorized books, quotes, authors. Some didn't go to college. They went to the library and researched, studied, tested theories, and studied more. And as for me, a young man, I hustled just to get those lectures. They weren't always here in New Haven. Only a few people had bootlegs of them. I mean, saying you were woke really meant something. I would almost say it was like saying you were a prophet. Now, I'm not saying who was woke was morally pristine, but when it came to your mind being sharp and educated, these brothers were master teachers. Master teachers like Bobby Hemmett, Phil Valentine, Dr. Ben, Steve Coakley, Khalid Muhammad, Louis Farrakhan, Black Dot, Asir, Duke of Tears. You look like Asir, by the way, man. Yeah, if you look him up.
Peace, Asir.
Brother Panic, A.A. Rashid, and our guest today, master teacher, fashion designer, hip-hop artist, host of Know the Ledge Media on YouTube. Welcome back to the show, Red Pill. Red, good morning, brother.
Peace and love. How's the family doing? Greetings.
Great, brother.
Blessings, yes, sir.
Thank you for joining us, man. We really appreciate you coming on for this special episode.
You already know. Shout out to my woke people out there.
No doubt, no
Shout out
doubt.
to them.
I want to, what we're gonna go over today. Before we get into the Nipsey Hustle blueprint, I wanted to just speak with you about when the news first broke to you, and to everybody. There was a lot of people who were talking conspiracy. A lot of people were upset that was even a question.
Hmm.
They looked at that as disrespect, which I totally understand that as well. On the other hand, I also understand the habit to go to conspiracy as well, because we know the history of COINTELPRO, and the way the government would assassinate a lot of black leaders isn't new, right?
Hmm.
And so I guess I wanted to ask you, one, what was your view when it first happened? And two, since it happened, we realized that um, the killer's being represented by a high profile lawyer, which was really
Hmm.
surprising. So I want to know if your views changed. So one, what did you feel like when it first happened? What were your views? And then have they changed since?
Oh, okay. Well, coincidentally enough, Sunday afternoon, right? I'm in New York City. I'm with my son. I dropped my son off with his mother, and this was around 4 o'clock. It's still drizzling. It was one of those rainy days. So I said, I'm gonna just go home and gather my thoughts and just, do some work and whatnot. I wound up going live on Instagram.
Mm.
So I'm going live. I'm on live. I'm burning some incense. I have these stones, these precious stones, right?
Mm.
But you know how people have like little small amethyst stones and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
I got boulders, right? So I'm encouraging the family that's listening to me to look into the natural resources, right, of the Americas, because a lot of people are not familiar with the natural mineral deposits that are inside of caves in America, right?
Mm.
So I'm like, we talking about reparations, we talking about all of the stuff on the surface, but the riches and the wealth is inside the land. We got to go. We clown people about coming out of caves, but we don't realize that inside of the caves and the mines and inside of the earth is where riches and wealth is being extracted from.
Mm. Definitely.
So we just shooting it. I'm showing them the crystals and everything, and then I'm looking in the chat, and somebody says Nipsey Hussle got shot. So, like, even the video is taped. I put it on my YouTube. Like, it caught me off guard. And I was like, wait a minute, what are you talking about? So I'm still talking as I see it, and then I see it coming again by someone else. So immediately I put the family on to what this breaking news is, and then I say to them, collectively, it's hundreds of us on the line right now. Let us send out the energy, the healing energy, and let us send out. Don't send. Let us not send out any negative vibrations. Right. Let's send out all positive energy, because it's been proven by scientists that the heart energy, the EKG brain waves, and the heart was monitored at the same time, and it was discovered that the heart sends out a stronger signal at a faster pace than an actual brain wave, right?
Mm.
So they also discovered that the idea of space and time when it comes to energy is it doesn't obey the same concepts that we obey with space and time, meaning that you could be healed by somebody through energy, through heart energy, millions of miles, thousands of miles away. They don't have to be next to you, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's an illusion. The idea of space is an illusion when it comes to energy that moves faster than the speed of sound. So I'm like, it don't matter if he's on the West Coast. Let's send him this healing energy from our hearts right now. And towards, I would say about, because remember there was a window for everybody who caught the news about him getting shot. There was like a 15, 20-minute window before TMZ and other news outlets reported that he was dead or DOA.
Mm-hmm.
And by that time, I got off the line. I got off my live. I was like, look, I'm hopping off this live, y'all. I'm going to get back on. I'm going to let y'all know what's going on. Let me go and do my research. So I hop on a YouTube channel. I'm not going to mention their name, but it's an online personality, a YouTube personality, and the brother's been in hip hop. He's been a journalist for hip hop for a long time, many, many decades. I grew up reading, articles that he wrote in The Source. And he was covering another topic. And then people were bringing up the Nipsey Hussle being shot. He was being very disrespectful towards Nipsey Hussle. Like, F that. I don't care. I'm doing this show. This is the title of my show. We're not dealing with that right now. We're getting this out of the way. I'm like, wow. All right. So I hop on other news sources because I need reliable sources, And then the news gets broken, and my heart sinks. Mm. There was no other artists that because I meet a lot of artists, I'm connecting with the industry, and I'm connecting with a lot of people. Like my DM has a lot of blue checks on it. Mm-hmm. But because of Nipsey's involvement with the Dr. Sebi document, we were scheduled to, we were scheduled to sit down and meet up with the brother in a few, like maybe a month from now. Our liaisons, the middleman, the people who are the connects were working it out. So whereas we were going to get to sit down with Nipsey. I met Nipsey in 2003 in the beginning of his marathon. He was signed to a record label called Cinematic Music, Johnny Shipes.
I remember Cinematic Music. Yep.
Yeah, they wound up signing Joey Badass and Pro Era, right?
Smoke DZA, I think too.
Smoke DZA, yeah, Smoke DZA is real big at that label. So when he first came to New York, my brother Blue Pill, he had the contract to work on this project through New Media. So he always used to tell me about this Crip who was wearing a Malcolm X chain, who was basically, the next, looked like Snoop. He was the next thing up. So, we met. I felt his energy. He was genuine. He was real. And I just watched him through the years. You feel me? Like and apparently, according to one of my brothers by the name of Bang Out, who brought him to Johnny Shipes, he's a producer, and we spoke the other day. He was like, bro, he was watching y'all. Y'all were watching each other. He was heavily plugged into the community, as is a handful of these artists, and they dibble and dabble in the consciousness the same way that we dibbled and dabbled in consciousness when we were, before I was even in what is known as consciousness or in the community, not woke, consciousness.
Right.
It's like saying, I'm at a community college, and you're talking to somebody that's in Harvard, and I'm not trying to be all braggadocious, or I just have to separate the, we have to give it some kind of clarity. Absolutely. As to what we're talking about. There has to be a difference. There's slap boxing, and then there's Mayweather. Like,
right.
There's woke, and then there's consciousness. You're on the road to being conscious if you decide to get out the bed from your woke phase. Mm-hmm. Because many of us, we're woke. We wake up and we're on the phone while we're in the bed for like 2 and 3 hours before before we
Yeah.
even get out sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
So to be woke is great. I applaud you. But the work to get out the bed, you have to physically move your legs and stand up, wash your face, take a shower, brush your teeth, make breakfast. You know, there's things that you have to do. There's a protocol in order to get ready, in order to be active. You know,
Right.
woke is not enough. And when I was, I used to listen to Farrakhan tapes. I used to watch VCR tapes, Steve Coakley, right? One of the master decoders. Like you said, Bobby Hemmett, Queen of Four, Dr. Blair, Dr. Ben, Dr. Clark. All of these doctors, Dr. Naeem Akbar, Dr. Amos Wilson, all of these doctors diagnosing one of the most perilous diseases that people of our race are suffering from, and that's double consciousness,
Mm.
as told by W.E.B. Du Bois. That is, and what that is, it's like it's a malware that we're afflicted by as Black Americans because we entertain two consciousness. The movie Us unpacked that concept of the two-ness and the double consciousness that we suffer from. We're attached to our African selves. We're attached to our continental selves, and we bathe ourselves in that culture in private. And we've interpreted that culture as hip hop. The master teacher Black Dot in his book Hip Hop Decoded,
Mm-hmm.
he broke it down how the 5 pillars of hip hop are in perfect alignment with the 5 pillars of African culture. The 5 pillars of hip hop would be MCing, master of the ceremony. That's the griot. DJing, cutting the turntables up. That's the ancient drummer, the war drums, the drummer banging on the djembe. The graffiti artist would be hieroglyphics in the way that we carved our art in stone. The the dancer, right? The hip hop dancer. Dance is one of the pillars of hip hop. The break dancer.
Mm-hmm.
Back in the days, we had all kind of dances in our ceremonies. Our ceremonies, nobody was standing like wallflowers. Everybody danced.
Everybody.
And then
does.
finally, yeah, everybody danced. And then finally, the 5th pillar is knowledge, right? Or consciousness. And of course, all great civilizations that we belong to were anchored and founded on consciousness. You cannot build a pyramid. You cannot build Machu Picchu. You cannot build the ancient burial mounds, and you can't build cities of gold if you don't have consciousness.
Mm.
So we've reinterpreted an ancient formula, an algorithm, mind you, and we've adopted it. It was born out of the slums. It was born out of desperation. It was born out of the Bronx. It was born out of ghetto tenements and things. It was born out of adverse poverty. It was the rose that grew from the concrete. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
They forgot about us, and we reminded them that we still here.
Has your view, on what happened, has there been any other change in how you view the whole situation, or anything that has changed in your mindset of what actually happened, or does it still remain the same that our people, unfortunately had this hatred for our own people?
Going back to what I was saying about double consciousness, there's a list of about 30 rappers who have been murdered in their own communities. You want me to give you the names? It starts with like Scott LaRock,
Mm-hmm.
who coincidentally gets killed in the Bronx, where the culture begins.
Jam Master Jay.
The legend, Stack Bundles, Chinks,
Mm.
right?
Yep.
Dobie, Dollar, Rise and Power to each one of these brothers. Camouflage, Soldier Slim, Slim Duncan, And if I forget anybody, it's not on purpose. XXX Tentacion. Remember Ascension
Oh yeah.
Protocol. We're gonna get into this later. There's a pantheon of sainthood in the culture now. XXX Tentacion left on June 20th last year. I remember the date. These are dates that are being etched in our minds. March 9th, I remember the day. September 13th, I remember the day. You know, these are the days that our great ones were ascended, not murdered, not killed, didn't die. They were ascending. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna get into that a little later, but I keep my ears open. You know, I'm not going to necessarily say that I'm entertaining theory at this point,
Mm-hmm.
but I created a series in 2016 called "The Fear of a Black Amor Messiah," right? And then we also do a lecture series with Professor Griff entitled "Fear of a Black Planet," right?
Mm-hmm.
So it would be remissive of me to dismiss any foul play at the hands of, you know, co-conspirators is what I call them.
Right.
Right? So to just say that it was just shitty cuz.
Yeah.
Excuse me, I don't want to, but that's his name, Eric
Right.
Holder.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
So,
go ahead, sir.
no, go ahead.
No, because you know I was approached by a brother and we talked quickly, you know, about this situation about Nipsey, and he didn't understand. He asked me, you know, why you look like you feeling so down, feeling so distraught. We've done, you know, here in New Haven, myself and brother Jay, we've done a lot of work in our community. You know, we was frontline soldiers, had our own nonprofit, and worked deeply with the youth. And made a lot of impact with the youth, but also recognized the trauma that we were facing when I had to go to a lot of these. We had to go to a lot of these young people funerals as well, because we were working with brothers that were literally shooting guns and doing all these things, and they just couldn't understand why I was so sad and taken back. And again, speaking to what you were speaking about, the energy. That energy transcend what he was doing, his energy, his love, his light, because we see it like, you know, he's working with these youth. If he was here, if he was in New York, he'd have been doing the same thing. So that love and that energy is universal.
And it was genuine. That's
Absolutely.
what we felt. That's what we felt.
Like, he wasn't on social media bragging, bro.
Right.
Like, he wasn't frontline, bro. Like, when Tupac made his ascension, quiet as kept, and I'm talking about before the Death Row era. He was an underground artist to a lot of people, and I'm not talking about the movie roles. I'm not talking about the antics. I'm just talking about, you know, like the work that he was doing. You didn't know that he was working with the Panthers. A lot of people didn't understand the One Nation concept, and, you know, people didn't know what he was working with they didn't even know his mother's story.
Right.
A lot of people. They just knew the line about crackhead and Dear Mama.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. So
You know the impact, and you realize who's who and what's what, and how intricately tied certain people are in to the overall narrative in their ascension.
Yeah.
And especially if they get prematurely taken from us. He was prematurely taken from us. That's why the impact is being completely felt. But it's an impact that is it's a bookmark. It bookended something. Something ended when he made transition.
Yeah.
So that's what needs to be explored. Did gangster rap die with him? Huh? Did bragging about killing your brother die with him? Is that going to be put to rest? Like, what left with him? Did the fact that we're being seen as one-trick ponies, like you can only be a rapper and you cannot be into STEM, you cannot be into smart stores, you can't be into blockchain, did that expire?
Right.
You know, because something that has expired. So I'm into. That's why I'm being very. I'm looking internally. Whoever did what they did to him, had no idea what they were about to start. That's all I got to say.
Yeah.
So if the government played a hand in it, it backfired. If it was only the hatred of a brother on another brother, the way that this has happened by so many people in the hip hop industry, and so many of these funerals that y'all went to, was the suspect the government at the funeral? Well, y'all talking about I think the feds came and got him.
At a mental institution, I think.
No,
Oh.
no. I'm talking about when you went to the funerals
Oh,
of the
nah.
young
No,
men
sir.
in your
Nah,
neighborhood.
not at
You
all.
knew.
Sir.
Okay, so what I'm aware of is that this has happened too often. There are Nipsey Hussles in everybody's neighborhood that are being taken from us. There are Nipsey Hussles in all around the world, in the favelas, in South Africa, in Jamaica and Kingston, where it's like the murder capital of the world, and it's a perpetual cycle taking place, and the government's hidden hand is all in it.
Mm-hmm.
The drugs and everything, and the guns and a lot of stuff, but they've created what is known as the pathology of it's the pathology of entanglement, or I don't want to say it wrong, but Patrick Moynihan coined that phrase in a report called the Moynihan Report that came out in the 60s during Lyndon Johnson's era.
Huh.
And it spawned policies. It spawned the war on poverty, but the war on poverty was based off of this report that Patrick Moynihan who was a New York senator at that time. He put it out. It was a hit. It was basically an intellectualized liberal hit on melanated families. He said because the black family is broken, and the black family is matriarchal, meaning that the mother of the household is the foundation, that it's a subculture inside of this patriarchal society, so it must be destroyed.
Wow.
That's what the report said. So we get the Great Society that introduces us to welfare, it introduces us to the food stamp system, it introduces us to Head Start inside of the educational system, where they began to control what the children were being taught. So they impacted us in a very social engineering kind of way.
Yeah.
And it's aiding and abetting that what we're seeing, this sickness. Like there's a cancer in our community. You can't buy back the block and still have the cancer on the block, because what is that going to do? The cancer is what's deteriorating the value of the block.
I wanna like go right there when you talk about buying the block, because we know that was one of the moves that Nipsey did, with his blueprint, and that's how I'm looking at it. I'm looking at what Nipsey did as a blueprint of how we can begin, and some of it we're already doing. Other things we need to start applying, right? So I just want to go through some of this list. One of the first things that really sticks out to me, it's something that I've been really talking about a lot, and that is the STEM program. Nipsey Hussle, for those who don't know, Nipsey Hussle created Vector 90, which was a space for young students to learn science, technology, engineering, mathematics, and Nipsey actually said that he wanted to make this. He described it as a bridge between Silicon Valley and the inner city.
That's right.
Can you speak on a little bit about why that's so important for our community?
Oh, excellent. In the year 2015, I was chosen, or I was selected to host a conference in Detroit entitled the STEAM Conference, right? And it was brought to my attention that Marcus Mosiah Garvey initially introduced a program called STEAM to the black community in the 20s. It's called Science, Technology, Engineering, Arithmetics, Art, Mathematics, and that was it. that was co-opted later on and became STEM, right?
Mm.
So naturally, based off of our contributions to humanity and mankind, it's a proven fact beyond any reasonable doubt that the Moors of North Africa, the Barbary Coast, which is Tripoli, Algiers, Libya, where Muammar Gaddafi is from,
Mm-hmm.
but back then that's Hannibal Barca and the Carthaginians, and the Senegalese, right, out of West Africa. All of these tribes, all of these nations are proven to be mathematical, scientific geniuses and engineering geniuses. They went over to Europe by way of the Mediterranean or the Iberian Peninsula, and they took Europe out of the Dark Ages, not with the sword, right, and not only with the Quran, but they implemented science, technology, engineering, mathematics, and that is a fact.
Mm-hmm.
They introduced animal husbandry, meaning that there's a science to raising animals. They introduced fashion into Europe. They brought the fork. They brought they brought the public bath to Europe, right? They implemented the bathhouses. They implemented sacred geometry. They implemented they call it Orientalism. That's what they call it, Orientalism. When Europeans began to go in what is known as the Far East, right? Before it became the Middle East, they went into the Far East to receive esoteric and occult knowledge. So when they brought us over here, or when they came over here and conquered, right? Because you're in Connecticut.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, King Philip and all of that. Feel me?
Right.
Mm.
Like, those people had kingdoms. Those people had empires in the Americas. Nobody came over it. Nobody had to be brought over there. They encountered in Connecticut. That state is very instrumental in a hidden history. It hasn't been completely unearthed yet, but Connecticut is very instrumental in the in history, the hidden history, the history that has to be uncovered in order for us to heal.
Mm.
So the people like in Connecticut and in Vermont and the Lenape tribes and all of these indigenous Aboriginal tribes and whatnot, the way that their villages were set up, the way that they were dealing with sacred geometry, they were dealing with mathematics, they were dealing with engineering, the longhouses, the teepees, the the ships that they were moving with. It's all dealing with these specific things.
Mm-hmm.
In order to revive the junk DNA, or order to remind the mind of who it is, right? You have to get back into the arts that are being held and kept from you.
Right.
Okay? So it's not that we don't know these things. No, these things are being kept from the inner city schools. These things are being, it's like
Strategically.
Mm-hmm.
strategically.
Yes, sir.
It's there, but strategically, when they told you in kindergarten that you were a slave, and it's like downloading malware.
And for those who don't know, malware is
It's
more.
a virus.
It's a virus, right?
So when they don't interject, it's almost like me telling you about the Avengers, the whole series, by starting with the movie with Thanos.
Right.
Mm, yeah.
Right. That's exactly what it is.
How dare you?
Right.
Why don't you give us the earliest story about when Iron Man and Captain America were buddies?
Mm.
Give us the first 3 movies. Don't start on the 4th one.
Right.
So to give us your history when you were enslaved, because there goes semantics again. There's slavery, and then there's enslavement.
Mm-hmm.
There's Slavs, which is short for the Slovakians, or there's a Slav, and then there's a slave. There's a prisoner of war, and then there's a slave.
Mm.
There's an indentured servant, and then there's a slave.
Right.
There's people who've been captured, and they are vassals of the state, and then there's slavery. So we have to be clear as to what we were succumbing to or what we were subjected to. And according to my research, we were not the original slaves. One, go and research the Barbary Pirates or the Barbary Wars. How is it that America was fighting Africans in 1815 and 1805? There was 3 wars, the Barbary Wars 1, 2, and 3. And they were fighting to stop paying tribute to the Barbary powers, which was the Ottoman Empire, and there were millions of European slaves up and down Africa, North Africa. The Barbary pirates and the Barbary powers were enslaving Europeans, and they were paying ransom, and they had to pay tribute in order to sail the Mediterranean. And the formation of the Marines, the songs that they sing from the shores of Tripoli, the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli, like that had to do with slavery. Mm-hmm. And I'm not talking about Africans either.
Right.
When the wave of European immigrants came into America in the 1700s, those were slaves that got freed. So what are we talking about? Like the whole story is backwards.
Right.
So we're backwards now. So we're functioning in our doppelganger self, like the movie Us showed us, because the movie Us, like I said, is exploring double consciousness. Double consciousness just speaks of a people who are completely lost.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have any bearing. We don't have our GPS system intact. It's off. And because it's off, you see the pathology of a whole race in HD. And shame on the other races who don't provide answers and don't provide clues and don't step in, and only they're taking advantage of us. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like we're Tatiana right now. You know, you see somebody that, no, I'm dead serious. They're taking advantage of us because we're loose.
Right.
And instead of comforting us, instead of taking us off the track, they're just coming to get their fair share of a quick hit.
So
they're selling us bundles of hair. They're selling us dog and cat, calling it Chinese food. They're selling us all of these things, pork and cigarettes, and they're praying and whatnot 5 times. Or hold on, I gotta pray.
Right. So we're going to take a very short break. In a couple minutes, we're going to be coming back, and we're going to continue this conversation. We just also want to acknowledge that another inspiration that Nipsey provided was that today the Bloods and the Crips are actually meeting. They met yesterday, and for the memorial, and I believe today they're meeting to talk about peace. You know, along with that, Nipsey also bought his own community. He put money in his own community, you know, and was able to build housing, make co-working spaces, you know. So for, you know, a lot of co-working spaces here in Connecticut, here in New Haven, we have them downtown, but we know that goes to Yale. We know that. You know, we don't have them in our hoods. And why would we need co-working spaces? Because how great would it be to know what another brother or sister is doing with their business venture, and what ways can we collaborate when we're in the same space? You know?
That's it. Yeah,
so,
because go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, because the first question, the last question rather, about Vector 90 and the importance of what it meant to the neighborhood. I should have got straight to it, but it's just what you mentioned about the co-workspaces. Now, I was looking in 2014. My daughter was born, and you know, I had succumbed to the idea of getting a legal, you know, a 9-to-5, because I'm an entrepreneur. I'm self-employed. So after about 3 months of realizing that that's not going to work.
Word up.
I began to do research in technology, right? It just brought me into that world. I was introduced to blockchain, cryptocurrency,
which is also what he put in money for, the cryptocurrency.
He was the face of crypto
Yeah.
for urban investors and whatnot. He was the face. He's not just the face of crypto. Remember, he's an early adopter to blockchain.
Mm.
So this whole thing that we're talking about, everything futuristic, that's what you get out of Saint Nip. That's his new name.
Saint Nip, no doubt.
Yeah, he's a saint. I'm serious.
Yeah, I'm dead serious. I see that. I'm saying
I could get into the metaphysics of his sainthood.
I'd like to.
But
I do want to get into that at some point in the next hour.
Yeah, we will.
Yeah.
So what I discovered, I put a lecture out called "The Evolution Will Be Digitized." It's on YouTube. You can find it on YouTube. The Evolution Will Be Digitized. I did it in 2014, and it's like 2.5 hours. I lined it up. I laid it out as a blueprint for my community and for everybody who was on a conscious wave to level up. It's like when your software tells you, fam, you want to get with the iOS system, this playing out right now.
Right.
You can't be running on Windows 85 in the 2000s.
So
unfortunately, because of the woke trend and because of, depending on your school of study and consciousness, you might be into victimhood consciousness. You might be into, conspiracy theory wokeness.
Right.
You're not you can't catch this flight.
Can you talk a little bit about why do you feel reparations is such a hot topic today?
Okay. I would accredit the ADOS movement.
Mm-hmm. And what is that? American
Descendant of Slaves, a movement that was created by Sister Yvette Carnell of Breaking Brown. This is like an online podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe the brother's name is Tone Brown. I'm not sure. Forgive me if I forget his name.
Okay.
But it's a hashtag movement, okay? And if anybody's familiar with the power of hashtag movements, I'm going to just share some hashtag movements so you get an idea of what I'm talking about. Me Too is a hashtag movement.
Mm-hmm.
Black Lives Matter is a hashtag movement. Occupy Wall Street is a hashtag movement, okay? This is an integrated new model. They integrate social media with grassroots, things of that nature. They don't have any identifiable leaders. It's a leaderless society or a leaderless group. But the ADOS has a website, ados101.com, where they have a list of demands and things of that nature. At the top of it is compensation to American descendants of slaves in forms of reparations.
Mm.
Not to take away from what Cobra and other groups have done throughout the ages, but the woke generation, Black Twitter, they latched on to the ADOS thing, and they've basically been utilizing that hashtag along with what's the other hashtag? Tangibles 2020 by way of Tariq Nasheed, because as we know, Tariq Nasheed is a prominent figure in media, new media for all things black.
Mm-hmm.
That would be the creator of the Hidden Color series.
Are you saying ADOS or ABOS? Like
AD, B is in descendant.
Okay.
Yeah, ADOS. So ADOS, the hashtags, they've been very they're disruptors. So they've been disrupting, a lot of disrupting a lot of tweets in the Twitterverse.
Mm-hmm.
They've been tagging a lot of prominent black leaders, and it caught the they've caught the attention of Joy Reid, a lot of the commentators.
Yeah.
These commentators who've been questioned and they've been challenged to publicly state their stance on reparations, along with the presidential candidates like Kamala Harris, Cory Booker, Andrew Yang, and Bernie Sanders. Everybody gets asked these questions
All of them.
by Charlemagne, because Charlemagne is a student of said teachers. Charlemagne is a student of Tariq Nasheed and a few other. I mean, Nipsey Hussle. You know, it's just interesting because there's this online universe where the talking points and the narratives are being shared, and the influencers or the artists or people that have millions upon millions of followers, they're repeating the narrative. They're continuing the narrative and introducing it to their the people who follow them. And this is how you implement change, you know, in this new era. This is how you shake things up.
Do you think that we're ready for reparations?
You know what? You know what I would say was interesting in the way that this conversation can marry itself is that Nipsey Hussle left behind the Nipsey Hussle plan.
Right.
When you were talking about the STEM
Mm-hmm.
programs,
Yep.
I wanted to mention that he also revitalized certain basketball courts in his area with money from Puma, right?
Mm.
So here it is. We have all of these melanated athletes being exploited by the brands, Nike, Adidas, Puma, but they're not they're not demanding in their contracts that each of these brands become heavily entrenched in whatever community that they come from that's dilapidated,
Right.
or that needs some kind of revitalization, because revitalization at our hand is called revitalization. Revitalization at European hands is called gentrification. So it just hits differently. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
we suffer under gentrification. I mean, I could do without the bagel shop that used to be the trap house.
Right. Right.
If when I go into it, you know, I'm reminded of how much love that I used to get from the trap house.
Yeah.
It's
Or they could
crazy.
do like a trap house that sells bagels.
You feel me? Trap bagels.
Trap bagels.
Bando bagels.
Right.
Or bagel bando. Like,
You are
You know.
joining us real quick. I just want to remind people that you're joining. If you're just joining us, we are speaking with a lecturer, a master teacher, Red Pill, and right now we're just talking about the contributions of Nipsey Hussle when it comes to the STEM, along with other various things in our society. So,
Yes.
yeah, as you were
So,
saying, brother.
the revitalization program, right? How it applies to reparations is in the reparations referendum, right? You know, we add in, you know, we pull up the red line maps, because, you know, we've been taught about redlining and everything. All right, cool. There's red line areas. So show me the red line maps, and then let's revitalize these red line areas.
Mm.
Let's re-gentrify it. I got the gentrifier playbook. I know the fonts that they use. I know the pastel colors that they paint with. You feel me? Like,
Yep.
I know the vintage fonts that they'll put on the bagel shop to make it look like it's mad cool and hippie and everything.
Mhm.
Like, we got their playbook. The brooms and mops and paintbrushes are not relegated to one race.
Right. Right. We could use
Let's
the
cut it out.
same. We could use the same tools.
That's right. And put some swag to it, you know?
Right. Right.
So, okay, go ahead.
No. My bad. Go ahead, brother.
I'm gonna run through this real quick about this whole reparations thing, because it's not about a check only. What is a check to black people with no direction? It's more chaos.
Mm.
Destination Crenshaw, right, is a multi-billion-dollar arts endeavor in South Central, right on Crenshaw. It's called Destination Crenshaw. They're pumping billions of dollars into the South Central area. That's why he was having meetings about ending gang violence, but at the same time becoming, you know, heavily entrenched in these multi-billion-dollar projects. Like,
Right.
you're not going to build, because the benefit that developers have with gangs and gang cultures, or, you know, gentrifying drug neighborhoods is that they can utilize that as a reason to not deal with the neighborhood or the community.
Right.
They use that as a caveat to not negotiate with anybody for any power positions when they come in and they throw all of this money around. They're like, well, how could we even sit with a criminal? How could we sit with, these people? We might as let's just price them out and push them out, or get law enforcement to remove the cancer.
Mm-hmm.
So by stepping up in your neighborhood and pulling your pants up, you feel me? It don't matter, it's not about your appearance, but you got to pull your pants up. You can have your face tats and everything, but, you got to come to the table with some sort of respectability politics.
Right.
And at the end of the day, you could sit at the table and negotiate with the people who are going to revitalize and develop, your grandmother's block or mama's block or the hood that you are, quote unquote, willing to die for. Right? So if you're willing to die for a certain neighborhood or a stop sign that you don't own, you don't have any property whatsoever, you don't even know the ABCs of real estate and properties and all of the subsidy, all of the money that's available, like you haven't even pierced that veil.
And I think it's important also that even if you don't know those things, who is in the community that does? And how do you now link up with them and either learn from them or hold them accountable to come with you to the table and speak about, things that you want to do with property in the community?
Or you follow the Nipsey model and you put the strongman behind the quote unquote negotiator, right? So you put the streets, you put the strength, you put the we're part of hip hop. So hip is the intellect, it's the mind. I'm hip. I know things. I'm in the knowing. I'm a Gnostic. And then the hop is the active principle that I will hop out and I'll pop out. And, I could get it popping by hopping. Like that's the active principle, that's the streets. But you need hip and hop in order to make things work. And you find that in a Nipsey Hussle, a Meek Mill. These are hip hoppers.
Mm-hmm.
They're hip and they hop. They got the streets and they develop in a form of intellect. One of the most dangerous combinations that people who fear us fear.
Yeah.
They are so comfortable around knuckle draggers and people who, tough guys that don't know anything.
Right.
Because you're not a threat. You get, they spin circles around you every day.
Right.
Because you're not hip. You don't know what's going on. You think you know what's going on. You don't know what's going on. There's people in the room who are way smarter than you or more conniving than you, and they don't use intimidation and brawn and other acts. They're not mean mugging.
Yeah.
They're smiling at you while they dig in your pocket.
I want to also, salute Lewis Reed, who came on to the show a few weeks ago, or maybe about a month and a half ago or so. And, I see a lot of people that put in work for recidivism and criminal justice reform, and that's great. And we also need brothers like Lewis Reed and other brothers, Officer Shafiq.
Yes.
Where these brothers are at the table with legislation, doing that other work, that we normally don't think about. We always think about community grassroots work on the ground, but then there's also spaces that are involving legislation that we need to be involved in.
Quiet as kept. The bill that Trump just pushed through,
The First Step Act,
the prison reform, the First Step Act. It's billions of dollars in that. And that money is going to drop. Unlike what Obama was pushing, that money never dropped with Obama. So I just was talking to somebody yesterday who's in the system, the prison system, teaching and whatnot, and they were hipping me to all of the money that's about to be available through the First Step. And they had the urban renewals that they passed a few billion on. This is Trump.
Yeah. What do you think about that? When you think about Trump doing some things that I'm still shocked by.
Well,
do you think there's something different with that? We kind of spoke on that last time, but if you want to touch on that.
Well, urban revitalization is basically, if you look at some of the tax laws that was passed, there's ways for people to not pay any taxes and to invest in urban renewal and things like that, and to basically get their money back in 5 years.
Mm.
He's playing a big money game with people who play big money. By the time you catch on to what's happening, they out of they on to the next one.
Right.
He is it's not a, I mean, people would say that it's a color thing with him. It's a class thing with him. It's a money game. He's
Right.
playing. If you're big enough to, if your bread is long enough to sit at the table, he'll let you sit there.
Yeah.
But they're playing a money game. He's playing a long game, the money game. Certain things may get passed, but that's no reason to begin to praise and to forgive and to forget.
No doubt. No doubt. I see.
Yeah.
Some people. I'm not gonna mention one brother's name that I do know specifically who actually praises Trump, but I can't bring myself to do that because I know that there's, just like you said, this isn't a he's not doing this because he wants to see black people win.
No, not
You
at
know?
all.
Yeah.
It's just
Urban, yeah. That money is. There's cranes in Harlem. There's cranes in the Bronx right now. They're not trying to position nobody at the bottom to get up.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They're positioning those who who made it to a certain bracket to go into a higher bracket by stepping on those in the lower bracket.
Right.
And that's what's at play. So let's not be fooled. But going back to the whole Nipsey thing before I forget,
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to just share with the family that Destination Crenshaw, so where's our destination? Where's our revitalization programs? We should have multi-billion-dollar programs inside of any kind of reparation memorandum, any kind of bill that we put forth or whatever. The shared workspace, Vector 90, right?
Right.
This is the Nipsey blueprint. I know that they got WeWorks. WeWorks is popping. Right?
WeWorks. I'm not familiar.
Yeah, WeWorks is like it's a corporate. It's like a workspace. It's
Okay.
everywhere.
Okay.
They're in different countries and all of that.
Okay.
So, like I was saying earlier, when I realized that nobody was trying to hire me, I purchased a Macintosh computer and I hired myself, right? And I got busy, right? And people would make millions off of that, just the Mac. Like I work for Apple. You know what I'm saying? That's how I see it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a creative. I'm a creator. And the Macintosh, the iMac, the MacBook provided me the tools to basically hire myself. So now I can retire myself. And if I act up and sleep late, I can fire myself.
No doubt.
You know what I mean?
Right.
I'm in power.
Right.
So that's what a workspace is. A workspace is you're not waking up early in the morning to go get a job. You're waking up and you're going into a space, and you are the job.
And this goes to and for those of you who weren't listening to the last episode, we were talking about steps that Nipsey Hussle made and for his community. And one of the things that he did was he understood the future of co-working spaces. And a lot of the co-working spaces, for some of you that are here in New Haven, a lot of you know that many of the co-working spaces are downtown New Haven, catering to more, professionals and Yale students.
Yes.
However, we need these co-working spaces in our community. So this is what our guest, Brother Red Pill, is speaking
And
about.
I want to just to add to that real quick because it seems like, bro, we don't have a Nipsey Hussle here in New Haven, Connecticut, on that level. I'm
On that level.
I'm saying it like that, on that level. We don't have no professional sports teams. You know what I'm saying? In a lot of other cities and a lot of other states, these are the people that come back and pour into the community and make these type of impacts. Because you got big athletes that come back, they got money, so the corporations, the American system feels like I gotta work with them because these are some of the people that are on our level. You talked about the money, so trying to identify where we need to or what we should be looking at in Connecticut to try to see where that level is at of people we need to be working with.
Well, y'all are brothers. You know what I'm saying? It's like y'all are cousins. So if that's not available to you, if it's not there in Connecticut, it could be. We need to build these bridges
Right.
Like Vegas and Los Angeles are cousins. They're neighbors. We're neighbors. Jersey, New York, Connecticut.
Right.
When the mixtape game was popping, when Big Avelli and Max B and all of them and Bird Gang, like Connecticut was an outlet. 50 Cent, that's an outlet. It's like there's a connection. Whatever we're doing here, and the Nipsey hustles that we got here, we got to bring them to where you at, and vice versa.
Right.
Y'all gave us Cambada.
No doubt. Salute to
feel me?
Cambada. Yep.
Yes, sir.
You know, there's not there's a Nipsey that's waiting to be embraced in Connecticut. We can't necessarily, you can't measure anybody to be on his level, because his level is going to be he set a watermark to reach now.
Right.
Right.
But it's like Pac said, I'm not going to be the one, but I'm gonna spark the one.
That's what he did.
Yes, sir.
That's what
And
he did.
That's right.
He
So-
that goes to the line of he inspired thought, and he inspired the thought of Nipsey to be able to take that same energy and take it to the next level. Absolutely.
And he was ascended. The reason why I say that is because you could tell ascension versus death. Remember, rappers die every day.
Mm-hmm.
Black men die every day.
Mm-hmm.
They get shot in front of stores. They get shot in front of their homies.
Right.
Is the whole world mourning them?
Right.
So
does the hold on? I'm
Mhm.
sorry.
yeah, go
Does
ahead.
does the trapper? Does the hustler? Does the get money brothers and sisters who are out here busting packs? Right? Does the bangers, the gang bangers, do all of these people have longevity in their death?
Mm.
Are they remembered? Are they revered? Are people holding on to their memory? You get this polished, eulogy about what this person did, when everybody sitting there knows, nah, he ain't do he did more damage than he did good.
Mm-hmm.
So watching this example that we're seeing right here, where somebody is being ascended into sainthood before our very eyes, it's not because of his music. It's not only because of his music. Let me rephrase that.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
everybody wasn't checking for his music. That's the common thing that you hear. Like a lot of, I don't even know what his first song. I don't know nothing about the music. I just used to hear about him.
Yeah.
I used to just, they wasn't even checking for his relationship. Like him and Lauren wasn't relationship goals. They was checking for Cardi and Coach and Offset.
Right.
That's right.
Right.
Let's just be, we have to be clear, because if we did this when Pac died, we could have been because a lot of people was, oh, that was my guy from ever. No, it wasn't.
Right.
And
right.
his ascension, he became known. You dug into his story. You became familiar with him. Y'all called him a failure when he got locked up. Y'all say he was finished.
Mm.
So what is it that's making him ascend like this? What is the magic part? Is it his spirit, or is it his works?
Right.
Yeah.
I want to be immortalized. I don't want to die and have to come back.
No doubt. No doubt. In a lot of ways, I think a lot of the prophets that we see spiritually, for whatever you believe in, that's exactly what happened. They were immortalized by even
Martyred.
after they passed,
It's
and
a
then
difference.
they became more alive.
But it's a difference between dying in your sleep or dying of old age, where you got a diaper on and your dentures, and then there's a difference when you dying young on some James Dean type stuff and you get martyred.
Right.
I'm talking about somebody takes you, you get murdered, martyred.
Right.
It hits differently. It ties into a biblical narrative. It ties into a Christ-like Christos, a crucifixion type of thing, that our people, our young men, our messianic ones, because we're talking about messiahs.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not talking about a messiah in the aspect of where people may have adopted a messiah from Sunday school. I'm speaking about in these modern day and times, the messianic ones are standing in a booth. They have mics in front of them. They got face tats. You feel me?
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? They smoke a lot of trees. Like, they speak the language of the quote-unquote people, because their genre or the culture that they belong to sits at the top of the world. Anybody that travel the world know that hip hop runs the world. It influences everywhere that you go. It's the most powerful genre of music to emerge in the last 100 years. That's a fact. It's not me saying that. Go and Google it. Look
Right.
it up.
Mm.
We are sitting
So,
with, we're talking with Red Pill, just for everybody that's tuning in. We're talking with Red Pill, master teacher. He's calling in straight from New York, and we're speaking about various areas and issues that are going on in society. Go ahead, brother.
yeah, so, you know, what is it that we should be focusing on? That's why I don't feed into the conspiracy, because it's muddying the water. It's taking away from his ascension.
Yeah.
He's bigger. He has so much things. He's being weighed down by false narratives.
Right. So
Doctors say they're injecting fear into his name, and you can't put fear into the name of the messianic ones, because he didn't live in fear. He wasn't soft.
right.
He wasn't soft. You know what I mean? He was on point. He was entrenched. He was entrenched in the trenches. So if he put out a tweet to say he has strong enemies, you know, I heard that he had a strong enemy.
Right.
Somebody who just came home, who was a known hitter,
Mm-hmm.
and they had street issues. So he acknowledged, like, yo, I got strong enemies. Like, that's not. He's in a culture. He's in gang culture. That's not something that's odd.
Right. Nah. That's you know what that is.
You know what that is.
Yeah.
You get over one challenge, you're gonna get faced with another one. It's
Yo-
just life. We're in a class.
I contributed that to as me and Jay was talking one time, and I contributed that to. I said we do something sometimes, right? I'm 40.
Yes.
We do something sometimes when you're 20, right? And I consider that like you throwing a boomerang out. And sometimes that boomerang could come back and hit you immediately, or it could come back 20 years later because you done threw that boomerang out to the universe.
That's
and
right.
It's coming back to
Carlito's
catch
way.
up with you. And it could be a whole 20 years later, you know?
That's
So,
right.
yes, sir.
It's unfortunate that that it did come back, but I do believe that what Nipsey Hussle left. Sometimes we could talk about how we got somewhere, but it's even more powerful how we left somewhere. And I believe
Victory lap. It's
yes,
how you finished the race. It's not how you started, family. It is not how you started. He named it perfectly.
yes,
It's how you finished the race.
that's right. And for y'all who don't know, Victory Lap was his last album, classic from beginning to end.
Straight up.
So I wanted to just go to a couple other topics that I would love to hear your thoughts on. We spoke
Yeah,
about
no problem.
reparations. We spoke about the importance of tech for our young people in the future. There's another area that is very, I don't want to say taboo, but I believe that at one point, I think for a lot of people, it was conspiracy only. But doing research and listening to people like Dick Gregory, I learned that it was a lot more serious than people would really imagine, and that is organ harvesting with black people. Can you talk a little bit about what your knowledge is on that?
Well, what I know about organ harvesting and the quote-unquote underground organ market, because if you speak to anybody that's in the underworld who deals with, underworld things, they'll explain to you that organ harvesting is basically a big business.
Huge.
It's a humongous underground market. They have organized crime is heavily entrenched into the quote-unquote organ harvesting market. The kidneys are at the top of that, right? Kidneys are definitely something that people are lining up, thousands upon thousands of people who are, waiting for organs. The kidneys are something that they're basically lining up for. But the whole body is being monetized, all the way down to the melanin. Okay,
The
all the
melanin
way down,
of black people also being marketed.
which is, if you look, yeah, which is on the black market, a kilo, or I mean a gram of melanin goes, it sells more than a gram of cocaine or gold.
Mm.
Okay,
Wow.
in places like Syria, all of these war-torn areas, because for some reason we don't realize, or we don't have the knowledge about the melanated populations in Iraq and
Mhm.
Basra. We don't know about the melanated populations in Yemen. We don't know about the melanated populations in Syria, right?
Mm-hmm.
We don't know about the melanated populations even in Afghanistan, certain places. But in war-torn areas and in disaster places, like when Haiti got struck with the earthquake,
Mm.
and in places like India, with the where they have like the untouchables
Yeah.
and things of that nature. You have these in places like Libya, where this migrant slave trade reversed from what the Barbary pirates were doing with the Europeans out of Sicily, all along the shores of Europe, right?
Mhm.
Now the slave trade has been reversed, and they're taking the organs out of the African migrants who are fleeing violence in destabilized countries. They're trying to get into Europe now. They got to go through Libya, or they got to go through the Barbary. So these they call it rat line. It's called a rat line. So you got sex trafficking, human trafficking, organ harvesting, or organ trafficking. A humongous business where the whole human body is comparable to like 5 kilos of coke. Like when you look, when you
Wow.
break down a body, it's breaking down to about, if you move 5 kilos. So if I could buy a slave, or if I could traffic a human, right? Then I could harvest their organs, because the end game in that scenario would be, what, you gonna walk around with no organs? You know what I mean? They're gonna kill that person.
Right.
This is
So
yes, sir.
go ahead.
No, this is so deep. I just want to ask you, if for somebody that's just coming in and trying to get an understanding, because you breaking down things in so many different areas, bruh. This is beautiful. If somebody was just coming in, they wanna become conscious. Could you give me 3 books, or 2 books, or where should they start? Where can you start just to say, yo, I need to do this. I want to get started, like concrete. Where could they start?
Hmm. I would get into the ISIS papers by Dr. Francis Cress Wilson
Yes.
as a precursor to your journey.
You said
Dr.
the ISIS.
ISIS.
ISIS, yeah,
ISIS.
ISIS,
Yeah.
ISIS papers that came out like in the 70s,
Yeah.
and it's prophetic.
Very relevant.
Okay.
Relevant
And
today.
who's that by?
Dr. Francis. What was it? What's the
Cress
name?
Wilson, Dr. Francis Cress Wilson, Cress Wilson, Wellsing.
Yes, sir. The other question I have for you is, with the state of our people here in America,
Hmm.
how do the black man, the man of color, and the black woman begin to heal with each other, to get on the same accord, so we could start breaking down these things together and understanding these things together? I see
Well,
I see so much
hmm
disconnect.
Because a lot of people are resistant. Even now, I'm sure that there's a lot of people where it's so much information that people are resistant, and yet this information and these conversations and this dialogue is important for our healing. So how do we start introducing that?
well, first of all, when a student is ready, then the teacher shall appear,
Mm.
right? So if someone is listening to this program and they're not ready to receive, they're going to, they're going to be standoffish. They're going to come up with every excuse to not download the information. There's going to be going back to double consciousness, right? That saboteur that rests inside of your brain. We have an internal conflict, right? Because it manifests as externally, so we are susceptible to buy into, yo, the white people are after me. You know what I mean?
Right.
They want to hold me down. They want to. No. How about you got somebody inside of you that's destroying you? How about that you have someone inside of you that there's an internal conflict? You're split into like 3 different people.
Right.
Some of us have blood that's foreign to us, that's at war with other blood. Or DNA is at war with each other because we have foreign entities inside of our bloodstream because, you know, our great-great-great-grandparents were violated. So the same thing that happened, remember Nipsey and Lauren London separated before. Jay-Z and Beyonce separated before. Shit, Cardi and Offset had a separation. How did they heal their issue? We, black man and black woman, are separated now. There's a separation. Nobody, you know, I don't know what day we could pinpoint the breakup, but we separated. We co-parenting. So who has to apologize to who? When does that, who's going to humble themselves and say, you know what? I'll take the first straw. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. And I think that because of what hip-hop is 45 years old, if we take a concerted effort and look at who might be a little more responsible for some of the detriment of the race, I think that the black man should apologize to the black woman.
I agree.
Absolutely.
I agree.
Absolutely.
I think we should get on our knees.
No question.
Because you know when you see those videos when dudes hit one knee and shorty start crying.
Get
like,
on
oh,
both
God.
knees.
Like, that's the automatic, you know, that's the automatic tear, that's the automatic emotional, like, damn, I only had to get on the knee?
Right. Right.
No, we need to get on both knees.
Yeah.
And hug her ankle. And just apologize for not what we did necessarily, but for what has happened.
Absolutely.
One of the things that you realize when you comfort your queen and whatnot, and you allow her to be, you know, transparent and comfortable with you, you might be downloaded with a lot of pain. You might hear about some things, some transgressions that happened to her that you had no idea about. I mean, we walking around here with swords and machetes and hatchets in our backs, black men, like we banged up. She puts us back together like Offset put a saw back together when he was in 14 pieces. That is our glue.
Right.
Let's be clear. I've been repaired on many occasions. You know what I mean? But what about her?
Right.
Like, who's putting her back together? Who's repairing her? Who is going to breathe that life back into her? Because it's a symbiotic relationship. She has to repair us. What about us? We're broke. We're not in our proper persona.
So what you saying in the understanding that she has to repair us, where could we direct one of our queens to go to even understand that? If she doesn't understand that she is the you know, the natural nurturer and all of those different things, where could you just where could you direct her to?
Well, I just want to push back on that a little bit and maybe question, should we even redirect? You know, is that something, or does it come down to when we talk about healing in the family and we talk about healing for the people, you know, the action of saying sorry, the action of saying, like, I'm sorry about what happened. I believe that is the action to redirect.
So what if she says to you when you say that, what if she says to you, I don't need you to be sorry? Because she doesn't, you know, you see what I'm saying? Because their whole mental,
hurt.
you know, she's still, that whole mental space is still there. So in order for her to see her own hurt and understand that she is part of the healing, we're part of healing each other, where could she start to look? Or where could you say, all right, because you sit down and say, Queen, read this with me.
Excellent question. Going
Yes, sir.
back to the concept of Nipsey, he laid it out. There's an interview that he had with Lauren London on GQ, one of the last interviews that you'll see him in, and it was like a 8-minute video where Lauren London asked him 20 questions about her,
Oh yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
and
saw
she
that.
said, "What was the last book that I read?" And he said, uh, "Queen of Four." Right?
Wow.
That's what she
Wow.
said. She read Queen of Four's book, Sacred Woman.
Which is Nova Slom. That's Nova Slom's mother.
That's Lova Islam's, yeah, his is Umi.
Yep.
And she's been healing women in our community for as long as I've known them,
Absolutely.
40 some odd years. And it could start with Sacred Woman, with Queen of Four. It could start with you know, Mama Pill, my mother personally. You know, she does a lot of work in healing. She helps get the parasites out.
We should probably do a whole episode if
Mhm.
we can with the women and those sisters right there, man. Those beautiful
Of
women right
course.
there.
Those
That would be
queens.
incredible.
Absolutely.
Their voices need to be heard. I mean, that healing voice,
Yes. Yes.
that healing, that when they get it, when they get into nurture mode, when they have, we have to respect the wisdom of our elders, because the new elders are not the same.
Right.
They're not going to disperse. They're not going to be able to give you the same wisdom that some of our 50, 60-year-old mothers and grandmothers and great grandmothers have, because they came up in a special era and a special time. If you didn't taste the 60s and the 70s and the 80s, there's something. It's almost like eating a cake with no eggs. There's missing ingredients.
Right. Right.
There's
So
missing ingredients. The same way that I'm sorry to cut you. The
Yep.
same way that the elder who fought World War II and was around in the 30s and the 20s, he saw the fangs of certain races of people. He could tell you certain things from a perspective that somebody who was born in the 1990s and missed out on all of that. There's a lack. There's a void that they have of perspective, because they didn't live through experiences and see certain things. They were born into it. So there's certain things they have to humble themselves and sit down and listen to those who can tell them from experience what it is and what it's not.
So I wanted to we have this one last minute left. I want to leave people with where to contact you. We know there's so much more to go to, but where can they contact you to get this wealth of information?
Oh, they can contact me on Cash App.
No
Yes, sir.
doubt. No doubt.
Money sign PHILMORELAND.
Yep.
And they can also contact me on the gram. That's one of the best, ways to get in touch with me. My name on the gram is it's my whole name, my government, but it's in I compartmentalized it into a name. So it's EL, as in Elohim, or the title of El, which is the title of nobility, underscore PHIL, which is my first name, TH, which is my middle name, Thomas, and MOOR. My last name is Moreland, because
All right.
ultimately the goal of our reparations, the goal of our ascension, and the goal of our mission is to get our land back. I don't really want a check. I don't need a check, so to say.
So, brother, I'm gonna cut you right there. My bad, brother. We gotta go to these bills. But thank you so much for
Yeah.
joining us, Red Pill.
Love
All
you,
right?
Like
brother.
the family.
Love you.
No
All
doubt.
right.
Love you too.
All
All
right.
right. Peace. All right. Good show.